Hey there, it's İclal. Recently I completed my yearly goal and I want to tell you about that. In January 2024, I wasn't feeling well. I was going through friendship problems, anxiety, or the can event every girl has at 19. I wouldn't wake up, I wouldn't go to sleep, I wouldn't eat, I was just crying the whole day. And at some point I asked myself, do you really want to stay miserable? What do you have that those people can't take away from you? You have an incredible passion and talent for language learning. Why don't you enhance your strengths instead of focusing on people and situations that aren't going to make a part of your life in 3 months from now? You don't have to be miserable. You can change your life, I told myself. Then I took the steps. I decided to take all my languages to advanced level. So the more specific goal was to take C1 or C2 exams. I just took a piece of paper and I started searching on the internet which exams I can take during the year. So I created a list in a way that would allow me to have some break between the exams, and at the end it looked like this. According to my plan, I was going to take Spanish C1 in May, French C2 in June, Russian C1 in August, German C1 in October, and then finally Italian C2 in November. And here I am. I just completed the challenge. I already have 3 of those certificates: French C2, Spanish C1 and Russian C1. I'm still waiting for my German and Italian results. Let's talk about why I did this, how I did this, and what I learned from it. Other than the reasons I explained in the beginning of this video, everyone knows I have some level of talent for language learning, but if you want to study or work in these languages, your YouTube channel means nothing to people. So in order to save my future self a bit of time, I just did all those tasks during the first year of university. And another point why I did that is, that's kind of vulnerable to admit, but I started social media as a child. When you make videos as a 14-year-old girl, you encounter a lot of adults explaining. This is a term I just came up with, but let me explain. It's when adults just are never convinced of your achievements, of your capacities. In general, they are not satisfied with who you are. So I just wanted to make those limits clear. The work I have here, like telling people about language learning, giving people advice, I did this in the past, but right now I'm more professional to do it. And I think that just shows how much I care about what I'm doing and what I'm putting out here on the internet. And also, we always talk about the importance of setting specific goals during language learning. If I didn't have this goal to take a French C2 exam, the entire year I would tell myself, yeah, my French is probably a C2. But when you have this goal to pass a French C2 exam, you really prepare for that. And at the end, you can make sure that your French is C2. I think the order I made the planning in is a perfect order, because Spanish was my most insecure language. So Spanish being my first exam helped me to prepare for it the most. Like, I took Spanish the most seriously. And then, since I was already in the language family, I didn't have a lot of difficulties preparing for a French C2 exam. And then I had the entire summer to work on my Russian. I went to Russia. I spent there 10 days, I met my followers, I met my friends. I worked on my Russian, still being unsure if I was going to pass the exam. And then, since I always say that Russian and German have similar structures and a similar logic, I think it was also a great decision that I took my German exam right after Russian. And also my last 2 exams being German and Italian was a brilliant decision, because those were the ones that I cared for the less. I started my challenge with DELE C1, which I took in May in Istanbul, and I prepared for it for like 2 months. It literally destroyed my mental health and also physical health. I realized that there was just no reason to ruin myself like that for an exam, because of the mere fact that it's an exam, and also my Spanish wasn't even bad. But you always start out insecure because it was just the first step of my challenge. If you have been following me for a long time, you probably know that Spanish isn't my favorite language. I would consider myself a really decent B2 with the comprehension abilities of a C1. I think DELE is a particularly different exam. Like, it's difficult in itself. Literally everyone taking the exam at the same time as me were natives. Natives, like with some level of education, shouldn't have any difficulties passing a C2 exam. But all those people taking C1 says something about DELE. It measures your both informal and formal skills. Especially during listening, the tracks are so fast and you are expected to know some random expressions from Colombia. Be ready for that. If I had to make some difficulty order, I would put DELE at 2nd place. I had 3 months to wait to receive my results. I was just taking this night train from Moscow to St. Petersburg, and at 2 a.m. I received this notification from Cervantes saying, congratulations. And I was like, I'm probably in a random village in Russia and I don't want to scream right now, but thanks God. After DELE, I had 3 weeks before my French C2 exam. That one was really chill because I already had a C1 and also it was a French exam, my comfort language. But I also didn't know what to expect from a C2 exam. Honestly, in terms of preparation, I just watched every video that had the word C2 in its title and I took notes. And something I did to guarantee a higher point was I tried to learn French words from accounts that teach French to French people, because it was always that this exam expected something extraordinary from me. Then I went to exam and I was convinced I screwed up. During speaking, I was super self-aware. I was like, it's my French C2 exam, I should be perfect, I shouldn't make any mistakes, they're probably judging me right now. And my topic was animal well-being. What can an individual say about animal well-being for 15 minutes using their best French? My voice was shaking. And at some point, I kid you not, the jury was like, what's happening to you? Like, you don't have something to worry about, just speak and it's over. And I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. Then I left the exam, but I saw the potential of a failure. And then I did really good in writing. I had a question about journalism, which is a topic that really fascinates me. And it was probably the best thing I've written my entire life. And after a month, I received my results and I passed my French C2 exam with 92.
Sence geçtin mi? Kazandın mı sence?
Kazandım.
Gerçekten emin misin?
Çöpü atalım da toplayalım mı?
92. 92. 92.
Taking a French C2 exam itself is pretty incredible, but passing it with 92 is something exceptional. But this exam was so overwhelming to the point that I wanted to leave the country and I went to Switzerland the next morning. And if I had to talk about the difficulty level of DALF C2, I would put it in the 3rd place. And then the summer started, I was a bit more relaxed, and I knew that my focus was going to be Russian and partially German. Honestly, I was more afraid for a German exam than a Russian one. But then I realized I made a big mistake. So, Russian C1, Turkey, isn't quite what we think in Europe. If you just want this exam to correspond to other European C1 exams, the Russian exam that you're supposed to take is B2. And this summer, I want to go to Finland. Then I told myself, girl, going to Finland won't change anything in your life, it won't add any value. For now, you have a Russian exam. Then I went to Russia in August. It was like a spontaneous decision. I decided I want to go to Russia. I booked tickets and in 2 weeks I was in Russia. I have things to tell about the time I was in Russia. I didn't upload it as soon as I come back because there was drama. I'm gonna tell you everything. Don't worry, I'm back. So during the summer I was just studying Russian, as I always do, because I really like this language, but I was just trying to elevate my Russian level a bit, having the acceptance of a possible failure. And I'm not saying this from a point of view of an imposter. This exam wasn't for me. This exam wasn't made for a 19-year-old girl, but it was too late to change my decision. I already paid the money and made the inscription for the C1 exam. Then the exam was in Ankara, Turkey. So my mom and sister, we just went to Ankara together, so we could just travel a little bit and also I could take the exam and we will go back to Istanbul. The exam took 7 hours. I don't remember anything about that day. I just came back to the hotel. It was pouring outside. I slept for 4 hours. It was like a fever dream. If you ever want to get a Russian certificate, please attempt B2. You don't need a C1. Now with the C1 certificate I have, I can literally become a diplomat. Like, okay, thank you, but I wasn't ready for that. Like, I expected something easier. This exam requires a lot of preparation. You're literally going to have some text about the federal law in Russian Federation. They're going to ask you to find some specific information. You're going to write 3 texts. After the exam, I was, this time, 100% convinced that I was going to fail it. Because during listening we had just one computer for the entire class from which we couldn't hear or see anything. And Russian listening exam is just a bunch of movie scenes from which you just have to find necessary information and you reply to multiple choice questions. We heard nothing. So I just read the questions and chose the most logical answer. And the questions seemed easy and interesting. I think what saved me in this exam is that one of the movie scenes were from the movie Leta. So I know what was going on. I watched that movie. I think that's the only reason for which I could pass the listening part, because Russian exam requires you get at least 66% from each skill, and that's sick. After that exam, I didn't even update my followers because I was like, okay, you don't have to achieve everything in life, that's fine. And after a week, I find out that I passed the Russian exam. I was like, okay, I think I'm unstoppable. Just kidding. I was just telling myself, I'm probably in some sort of divine protection and God just doesn't want me to fail. Or I just really deserve this. I was like so proud of myself. Maybe that's even a bigger achievement than my French C2. So this Russian exam, as you can understand, was the hardest of the year. I'm putting it on the top of the list. At that point, the stressing part of the challenge was over, because my next exams were German and Italian. I just checked for the German exams and I was going to take DELE C1, but then many of you told me that that exam ain't going to change something in your life, you can't even study in Germany with that. Then I told, okay, I think I'm a decent C1, like I'm not some B2 striving to be C1. I can take any C1 exam. So I was going to take the most difficult C1 exam out there. I attempted to take TELC C1 Hochschule, because I thought that would be the one. Mostly I was super chill, because in the past I studied a lot of C1 German, I had the necessary vocabulary. I was just trying to make it even more perfect. I took some private classes, I took group classes, I used some resources. So I prepared for this German exam and I went to Bolzano to take it, and it went great. I think another factor that affected this is because Bolzano is a bilingual city where you can speak both Italian and German. For like 3 days before the exam, I was always surrounded by those German signs. I would read German newspapers. I would go to museum, ask for a German audio guide, and I would just read everything. I would spend hours just reading and listening. This real life practice also probably helped me with the exam, but in general, I wasn't even stressed. So German exam was the least difficult one for me. Then after 2 days, I had my public law exam at university. Then I took it, it was an oral exam, and I got 26 out of 30. Italians, don't judge me, this is not my legal system, but that's my highest note at university ever. And that made me think, if you can pass a public law exam in Italian, an oral one, you're probably more or less ready for an Italian C2 exam, which is kind of facts, right? So I had 2 weeks until my Italian C2 exam, but I didn't study. I had the exam samples, I didn't even bother to check. Then we had like 3 days until the exam. I was like, okay, I will start being anxious, I will start being stressed, I will start freaking out. Because I have an Italian C2 exam in 3 days, I didn't study for it. What I'm going to do? Check the samples, oh my god, they are difficult. And you know what? When I was 16, I studied Dante's Divina Commedia. Like, I have that kind of Italian too. But reading those samples, I was just like, we came this far, but maybe that's over. Anyway, then some people just started calling me a pick-me because before each exam I would tell I was stressed, but then I would magically pass the exams. I don't see your point. Being me is not a privilege. If you think I'm privileged, it's because I built this privilege by myself. You're like, you know French, you studied in Italian, you have no right to be worried about your Italian C2 exam. Girl, C2 means a native with higher education. It's normal for me to freak out for this. Even if I speak perfect Italian. I don't speak perfect Italian. The fact that I know French, the fact that I'm studying in Italian, the fact that I have already passed 3 exams is not a privilege. That was also some effort. That was also some difficulty I experienced in the past. This time, once again, I can feel insecure and I have the right for this. On my difficulty rank, Italian would be probably the 4th. It was easier than French. Like, French exam was easier, but since I was feeling worse, I would say Italian is easier overall. We are still waiting for my German and Italian results. German ones I'm getting like in 2 weeks, Italian probably in February. But I don't think I'm gonna fail something at this point because those were easy, like. So what does challenge taught me? First of all, I have some kind of imposter syndrome. I think everyone has it, it's like a global thing. But imposter syndrome is sometimes caused by you, by your personal insecurities, and sometimes it's caused by people around you or by social media. And on social media, if you are someone who shares their language learning process, people tend to tell you that you're actually not doing that great. Like you don't have anything to be proud of. It's just who you are. If I was you, I would pass that exam too. They're just trying to discredit the work that you have done. They're just trying to keep you humble. Being humble isn't a bad thing, but if people are trying to keep you humble out of their jealousy, it's a bad thing. So this challenge really helped me to regain my self-respect and self-confidence. It helped me to understand to which point you should care about people's criticism, people's opinion. It's just that I didn't want myself to suffer for the entire year. Like, if you have a friend that doesn't know how to appreciate you, it doesn't change anything in the fact that you're still a brilliant girl. Don't care that much about your surroundings. Like, I still had friends who cared about me. I have a loving and supportive family. I have thousands of people on the internet who cares about me and who get inspired by me. So a bunch of fake friends, who cares about them? Don't let people change the trajectory of your life. Don't care about them. If you have something to achieve, just go for it. You will forget about those people. Or they're going to forget about. They don't care about you. Just do your thing. Because future you is either going to be proud of what you did during the times of difficulty, or is going to regret because you just spent your time crying for your friends. Who cares? Something else this challenge taught me was, of course, the languages. In general, I had a sense of how to make my speeches sound advanced. Like, while preparing for my German exam, I already knew all the tricks. Like, I should say this, I should give my examples like this. Now I know how to speak at a C1 exam. And right now, I literally feel like my frontal lobe developed while I'm studying for my classes, while I'm reading a book, while I'm listening to something. Guys, my comprehension level in anything tripled. I literally became smarter. I became so aware of things. From a cognitive point of view, that was a really enriching activity. It just helped me to ensure that all of my languages are in fact great. Recently I was just reading a Russian book and I realized I understand almost everything I'm reading. The day I was taking the C1 exam, I didn't feel like that. But after a while, your brain just accepts all the information that you tried to load on your brain. So you will realize your language level actually improving beyond the certificate. And also it helped me to understand if I want something, if I work for it, I can probably achieve that. If I did this, I'm probably more than what I think. So I don't have to be an imposter. I don't have to think that my achievements are a result of luck. No, it's because I was successful, because I deserve that. What I want to do next, let's talk about this. So first thing is, I just want to make more content on YouTube. And also I want to work on my Swedish and Dutch. Today I was already studying Swedish for a few hours. And also recently I started preparing people for French exams. I mainly do B2 and C1. So I'm just trying to gain some experience right now. And in a few weeks I want to start these coaching for French exams and also for language learning in general. So if you're interested in this, just wait for an upcoming update. And also next year I want to learn a new language, which is from an entire different language family. Anyway, in January I'll probably giving it a start. I'm just excited to learn a language from which I don't understand anything at the moment. I just want to talk about simple things. I don't want to have the skills of a C2 learner. Thanks for following me during this journey. So I think this gave you some motivation to work on your goals or to aim even higher. You can follow me on social media if you're interested in getting updates and some language learning tips. And see you again. Bye.